My daughter called me and said, "Mom, we decided it's best if you don't come here anymore." The next day, the grandson she tried to hide showed up alone at my door with a little letter. "Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached." My daughter called me saying, "Mom, we think it's better if you don't come over anymore." I felt like I'd been slapped. The phone trembled in my hand as Amanda's cold words washed over me. This was my daughter, the same little girl I'd raised alone for 25 years. What? Why? My voice cracked. The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably until Amanda sighed. "Richard thinks it's best for now. You're always criticizing how we raise Lucas, and frankly, it's causing problems between us." Richard. Of course it was him. My son-in-law had never liked me. From the moment Amanda brought him home 5 years ago, I'd sensed his quiet disapproval. But I never thought he'd actually convince my daughter to cut me off. "Amanda, that's not fair. I've never criticized." "Mom, please. Richard says you undermine our parenting whenever you visit. Lucas gets all wound up and then won't listen for days afterward." I sank into my kitchen chair, watching the afternoon light filter through the curtains I'd sewn myself. The same curtains Amanda had always admired. "Can we talk about this in person?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm sure we can work through." "Richard thinks a clean break is better," she interrupted. "Just for a while, until things settle down." Richard thinks. Richard says. When had my daughter stopped thinking for herself? After hanging up, I sat motionless at my kitchen table. The house felt suddenly larger, emptier. The photos on my refrigerator, mostly of Lucas's gap-toothed smiles and artwork, seemed to mock me now. I'd given everything to raise Amanda after her father walked out when she was just 3. Working 2 jobs, skipping meals so she could have new school clothes, postponing my own dreams. I'd never complained. Never asked for gratitude. But I certainly never expected to be cast aside like yesterday's garbage. The worst part was Lucas. My 8-year-old grandson and I had a special bond. We baked cookies together every Saturday when he visited. He'd tell me about his dinosaur collection while I taught him how to measure flour. What would Richard tell him about why Grandma wasn't coming around anymore? That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Richard, searching for what I'd done wrong. Had I really criticized their parenting? I'd suggested maybe Lucas needed more outdoor time instead of video games once. Was that so terrible? I thought about calling my friend Diane, but pride stopped me. How do you tell someone your own daughter doesn't want you anymore? Morning came with no answers, just a hollow ache in my chest that coffee couldn't fill. I shuffled through my morning routine on autopilot. Shower. Dress. Coffee. Toast I couldn't eat. The silence in the house was deafening. By noon, I'd resolved to write Amanda a letter. Not begging, just explaining. I'd always respected her choices, even when I disagreed. All I wanted was to be part of their lives. I was halfway through writing when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. For one wild moment, I thought maybe Amanda had reconsidered. Had come to talk face to face like adults should. I opened the door and looked down into a pair of familiar brown eyes. "Grandma." Lucas stood on my porch, backpack askew, his small face flushed from running. In his hand was a crumpled envelope. "I came by myself on the bus. I brought you something." My heart stopped. Lucas had never taken the bus alone before. Did Amanda know where he was? "Lucas, honey, does your mom know you're here?" I asked, ushering him inside while looking anxiously down the street for signs of Amanda's car. He looked down at his sneakers. "No. She and Dad were fighting again this morning. About you. I heard Dad say you're not allowed to see me anymore, and I got really mad." The lump in my throat made it hard to breathe. Even as worry coursed through me about Lucas traveling alone, something inside me broke hearing his words. "I made you this," he said, thrusting the envelope toward me with determined little fingers. "Please don't be sad, Grandma." My hands trembled as I took the envelope from Lucas. His little face, so much like Amanda's when she was young, watched me expectantly. I didn't know whether to hug him or rush to the phone to call his mother. "Sweetheart, your parents must be worried sick," I said, guiding him to the kitchen table. His backpack was stuffed with what looked like a hastily packed assortment of toys and a Spider-Man t-shirt. "I left a note," he said matter-of-factly. "I told them I was going to Grandma's and they shouldn't be mean to you anymore." My heart squeezed painfully in my chest. 8 years old and riding the public bus across town to stand up for his grandmother. I was terrified for him and touched beyond words at the same time. "Let me see what you brought me," I said, carefully opening the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of construction paper covered in colorful crayon drawings. Lucas had drawn 4 figures holding hands, a tall woman with curly gray hair, me, a little boy, him, and 2 adult figures I assumed were Amanda and Richard. Around the drawing, in his careful 3rd-grade handwriting, he'd written, "Family forever," and "I miss you, Grandma." Tears welled in my eyes. "It's beautiful, Lucas." "Turn it over," he urged, his eyes bright with excitement. I flipped the paper to find a letter written in the same careful handwriting. "Dear Grandma, I'm sorry Dad said you can't come over. Mom cried after she called you. I heard her in the bathroom. Dad doesn't like when she cries, but I think it's his fault. I miss your cookies and your stories. Dad says you're a bad influence, but I know that's not true. You're the best Grandma. Please don't stay away forever. Love, Lucas." A tear splashed onto the paper before I could stop it. I quickly wiped it away, not wanting to smudge his precious words. "Thank you, sweetheart. This means the world to me." Lucas nodded seriously. "Can I stay with you? Just for a little while?" Reality crashed back. Amanda must be frantic. Whatever issues existed between us, I couldn't keep her son from her. "Lucas, I need to call your mom," I said gently. "She needs to know you're safe." His face fell. "But she'll make me come home, and then I won't see you anymore." I knelt beside his chair, taking his small hands in mine. "Listen to me. No matter what happens between your mom and me, I will always be your grandmother. Nothing can change that. But right now, we need to let your parents know where you are." He nodded reluctantly, and I reached for my phone. Before I could dial, it rang in my hand. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. "Hello?" I answered. "Mom?" Amanda's voice was high with panic. "Is Lucas there? Please tell me he's with you. He's missing," and his note said. "He's here," I interrupted, relief washing over me that she'd already found his note. "He's safe. He took the bus." "The bus?" she nearly screamed. "He's 8 years old. What were you thinking?" I felt a flash of anger. "I didn't know he was coming, Amanda. He showed up on my doorstep 10 minutes ago. I was just about to call you." There was a moment of silence, then a muffled conversation I couldn't make out. Richard's voice in the background, sharp and angry. "We're coming to get him," Amanda said finally, her voice strained. "Don't go anywhere." "Of course not," I replied, but she'd already hung up. I turned to Lucas, who was watching me with worried eyes. "Your mom and dad are coming to pick you up." "Are they mad?" "They were very worried about you," I said carefully. "Taking the bus alone was dangerous, Lucas. You can't ever do that again." He looked down at his hands. "I just wanted to see you. Dad said I couldn't, and it wasn't fair." I sat beside him, putting my arm around his small shoulders. Sometimes adults have disagreements that are complicated. But you know what's not complicated? How much I love you. That will never, ever change. Even if I don't see you for a long time. Even then, I assured him, fighting back tears. Now, do you want some milk and cookies while we wait for your parents? He nodded eagerly, and I busied myself in the kitchen, trying to keep my hands steady as I placed Oreos on a plate. My mind raced with what I would say to Amanda and Richard when they arrived. How had things gone so wrong so quickly? 20 minutes later, a car door slammed in my driveway. Lucas froze mid-bite, his eyes darting to the window. I squeezed his shoulder reassuringly before going to open the door. Amanda burst in, her face tear-streaked, with Richard right behind her, his expression thunderous. "Lucas!" Amanda cried, rushing past me to gather her son in her arms. "Don't you ever scare me like that again." Richard stood in my entryway, arms crossed, glaring at me as if this whole situation were my fault. I met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated in my own home. "You see what you've caused," he said quietly, his voice cold. "This is exactly why we need space from you." Before I could respond, Lucas wiggled free from Amanda's embrace. "It's not Grandma's fault. She didn't know I was coming. I came because you were being mean to her." Richard's face darkened. "Lucas, get your things. We're leaving." "No!" Lucas shouted, grabbing my hand. "I want to stay with Grandma." And that's when everything exploded. Richard's face turned a dangerous shade of red. "That's enough, Lucas. Get in the car now." "Richard," I said, keeping my voice deliberately calm. "Please don't yell at him." He whirled on me. "Don't tell me how to parent my son. This is exactly the problem. You're always undermining our authority." Amanda stood frozen, looking between her husband and her son, her face pale. The indecision in her eyes broke my heart. When had my confident daughter become this hesitant shadow? "Lucas," Amanda finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please go wait in the car. I need to talk to Grandma." Lucas looked up at me, his brown eyes swimming with tears. I gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be fine." He reluctantly let go of my hand and headed toward the door, shooting one last look at me over his shoulder. "I'll walk him out," Richard said stiffly, placing a firm hand on Lucas's shoulder. Once they were outside, Amanda sank into my kitchen chair, looking exhausted. Her eyes fell on Lucas's letter still lying open on the table. "He took the public bus by himself," she said, a fresh tear rolling down her cheek. "He could have been hurt, or worse." I sat down across from her. "Amanda, what's really going on? This isn't like you." She stared at her hands. "Richard says you're too lenient with Lucas. That you spoil him and it makes it harder for us at home. Is that what you think?" She didn't answer. "Amanda, look at me," I said gently. "I raised you alone after your father left. I never tried to turn you against him, even when he stopped sending child support, even when he missed your birthdays. I would never undermine you with Lucas." She finally met my eyes. "Richard says you're jealous because you don't have what we have, a complete family." The accusation stung like a slap. "Is that what you believe?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered. "Richard says I need to choose. My marriage or..." She trailed off. "Or me," I finished for her. The silence between us stretched, filled with 25 years of memories, me bandaging her skinned knees, staying up all night when she had the flu, helping her with college applications, celebrating her graduations, her wedding, the birth of Lucas. How had we come to this? "He controls your money, doesn't he?" I asked quietly. Her head snapped up. "What?" "I noticed you stopped working after you married him. Your credit cards are all in his name. You ask his permission for everything you buy." Amanda's face flushed. "He's good with finances. It makes sense for him to manage our money." "And your friends? When was the last time you saw Jen or Sarah?" "They're busy. We all are." I leaned forward. "When was the last time you did anything without checking with Richard first?" "Stop it," she said sharply. "You don't understand. Richard takes care of us. Does he? Or does he control you? The door opened before she could answer. Richard stood there, his expression cold. We're leaving, he announced. Amanda, now. She stood immediately, like a soldier responding to a command. The sight made my stomach turn. Amanda, I said urgently. Think about what I said. Richard stepped between us. She doesn't need to think about anything you've said. You've done enough damage. He turned to Amanda. Let's go. She hesitated, just for a moment, then followed him to the door. As she passed me, she whispered, I'm sorry, Mom. And then they were gone. I stood in my kitchen, the house suddenly quiet except for the ticking of the clock. Lucas's letter still lay on the table, the colorful drawing of our family holding hands staring up at me. I slumped into a chair, exhaustion washing over me. Had I made things worse? I picked up the letter, carefully folding it and placing it in my apron pocket, close to my heart. My phone rang, startling me. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something compelled me to. Hello? Carol? It's Diane McCarthy. Lucas's teacher from school? My heart skipped. Yes, Diane. Is everything okay? I hope I'm not overstepping, she said, her voice tentative. Lucas has been different lately. Withdrawn. Today he wasn't at school, and I was worried. He's with his parents, I assured her. There's been a family disagreement. I see. She paused. Carol, I'm concerned about Lucas. And about Amanda, to be honest. I've tried talking to her at pickup, but Richard is always there, answering for her. I gripped the phone tighter. You've noticed it too. Several of us teachers have. The way Richard speaks to her in front of other parents, the way Lucas talks about rules at home, it raised some red flags. My throat tightened. Diane, they've cut me off. Richard doesn't want me seeing Lucas anymore. That's why I'm calling. Lucas told his friend Jacob that he wasn't allowed to see his grandmother anymore because she was bad for the family. He was so upset that Jacob told his mom, who happens to be my friend. When she mentioned your name. You remembered me from the school bake sale, I finished. Yes. I thought you should know. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking. The teacher's concerns confirmed my own. Something wasn't right in Amanda's home. Richard's controlling behavior wasn't just directed at me, it was affecting Amanda and Lucas too. I couldn't force my way into their lives, but I couldn't abandon them either. I needed help, another perspective. I picked up my phone again and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Marianne? It's Carol. I need your advice. It's about Amanda. Marianne had been my closest friend for 30 years, until she moved to Phoenix 3 years ago. She'd been like a second mother to Amanda, and one of the few people who knew everything we'd been through. He's isolating her, Marianne said after I'd explained the situation. Classic controlling behavior. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice breaking. If I push too hard, I might lose her completely. You need allies, Marianne said firmly. People who can confirm what you're seeing. Amanda's old friends, other family members. Has Richard alienated her from everyone? I thought about it. Sarah used to be her best friend since college. They were inseparable until the wedding. Then Amanda started declining invitations, saying Richard didn't like Sarah's boyfriend. Call Sarah, Marianne advised. And anyone else who might have noticed changes in Amanda. Build a support network, Carol. Amanda needs to see she's not alone. After our call, I made a list of Amanda's friends who had gradually disappeared from her life after she married Richard. Sarah. Jen. Her cousin Beth. Even her college roommate Taylor, who had been maid of honor at her wedding. I started with Sarah, who answered on the second ring. Mrs. Wilson? Is Amanda okay? The immediate concern in her voice told me everything I needed to know. I'm worried about her, Sarah. When was the last time you spoke with her? Sarah sighed. Months ago. I've tried, Mrs. Wilson. I really have. But Richard always answers her phone now, or she cancels plans last minute. It's like she's disappeared into that marriage. Would you be willing to meet with me? I'm trying to understand what's happening. Of course, Sarah said immediately. I miss her. We all do. By Friday, I'd arranged to meet Sarah, Jen, and Beth at my house. The four of us sat in my living room, coffee cups in hand, sharing our concerns. He checks her text messages, Jen revealed. She told me once, like it was normal. Said Richard just wanted to make sure no one was disrespecting their marriage. She stopped wearing the earrings I gave her for her birthday, Beth added. Said Richard thought they were too flashy for a mother. Sarah nodded. He controls everything, what she wears, who she talks to, how she parents Lucas. It's gotten worse over the years. I suggested therapy once, Jen said quietly. Amanda told me Richard said therapists try to break up marriages. As I listened, a clearer picture emerged, one that frightened me. Richard hadn't just isolated Amanda from me, he'd systematically cut her off from everyone who cared about her. What about Lucas? I asked. Have you noticed changes in him? They exchanged glances. He used to be such a happy kid, Beth said. Now he's so quiet. Always checking to see if he's doing the right thing. Last time I saw him, Sarah added, he knocked over a glass of water and nearly had a panic attack, apologizing over and over. My heart sank. I remembered Lucas as a vibrant, curious child. What was happening to him in that house? Our conversation was interrupted by my phone ringing. Amanda's number. I answered immediately. Mom? Her voice was hushed, anxious. Is Lucas with you? My heart stopped. No, honey. Isn't he with you? He's gone. Richard and I had a fight about you, actually. Lucas overheard and got upset. Then Richard started yelling at him about respecting his authority. Her voice cracked. I tried to intervene, and Richard, he got so angry. Lucas ran to his room, and when I checked on him later, his window was open. He's gone. I fought to stay calm. Have you called the police? Richard doesn't want to involve them. He says Lucas is just being dramatic and will come home when he gets hungry. Her voice dropped even lower. But Mom, it's getting dark, and it's supposed to rain tonight. Amanda, listen to me. You need to call the police right now. I can't. Richard took my phone after I called you. I'm using our neighbors. He'll be back any minute. I made a quick decision. I'm coming over. We'll find Lucas together. No, Richard will. I don't care what Richard will do, I said firmly. My grandson is missing. I'm coming. And Amanda? Call the police. Now. I hung up and looked at the worried faces in my living room. Lucas is missing. Richard doesn't want to involve police. Sarah immediately stood up. We'll help you look. I'll drive, Jen said, grabbing her keys. I'll call my husband, Beth added. He can check the parks. Within minutes, we had organized a search party. As we headed to our cars, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Wilson, it's Mrs. Chen from next door to Amanda. Lucas just showed up at my house asking for help. He's safe, but he's very upset. I've called the police. Relief flooded through me. He's safe, I told the others, showing them the text. At the neighbor's house. But we still need to go. When we arrived at Amanda's neighborhood, 2 police cars were parked outside the Chen residence. Mrs. Chen, a kind-faced woman in her 60s, met us at the door. He came to me because he knew I was a nurse, she explained, leading us inside. Said he needed someone who helps people. Lucas sat on the Chen's couch, wrapped in a blanket, a mug of hot chocolate clutched in his hands. A female police officer sat beside him, quietly talking. When he saw me, his face crumpled. "Grandma," he cried, rushing into my arms. I held him tight, feeling his small body tremble against mine. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now." The officer approached us. "Mrs. Wilson? I'm Officer Ramirez. Lucas has told us some concerning things about his home situation. We're going to need to investigate." Before I could respond, the front door burst open. Richard stormed in, Amanda trailing behind him, her face streaked with tears. "What is this?" Richard demanded, glaring at the officers. "You have no right to be in here. Lucas, come home now." Lucas clung to me, burying his face in my side. Officer Ramirez stepped forward, her expression professional but stern. "Sir, we've received allegations that require investigation. I need you to step outside with my colleague." "Allegations? What allegations?" Richard sputtered, his face reddening. "This is ridiculous. Lucas, come here." Lucas trembled but didn't move. Amanda stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes locked on her son. "Richard Prescott," the male officer asked, stepping forward. "Please come with me." As they led Richard outside, Amanda rushed to Lucas, kneeling before him. "Baby, are you okay?" I was so worried. Lucas looked at her, his eyes too old for his 8 years. "Dad hurt you, Mom. I saw him push you against the wall." Amanda paled. The room went silent. Amanda's face crumpled as she looked at her son, then at me, then at her friends who had gathered around. The secret she'd been hiding, the shame she'd been carrying, was suddenly exposed in 8 simple words spoken by her child. "Is that true?" Officer Ramirez asked gently. Amanda's hands trembled as she brushed hair from Lucas's forehead. "It was an accident," she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Mom," Lucas said, his voice small but steady. "You told me we should always tell the truth. You said lies hurt people." Amanda closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, she looked so much like the little girl I'd raised, vulnerable, scared, but with that same core of strength I'd always admired. "Yes," she finally said, the word barely audible. "It's true." The next few hours passed in a blur of police statements, social workers, and quiet conversations in corners. Richard had been taken to the station for questioning. Amanda sat with a victim's advocate, answering questions about their marriage, about patterns of behavior, about what Lucas had witnessed. I stayed with Lucas in Mrs. Chen's kitchen, coloring superheroes to distract him from the adults talking in hushed voices in the living room. But children sense more than we give them credit for. "Is Dad going to jail?" he asked, carefully staying within the lines as he colored Batman's cape. I set down my crayon. "I don't know, sweetheart. What happened tonight is very serious. He gets really angry sometimes," Lucas said, not looking up. "Not just at Mom. At me too, when I don't follow his rules exactly right." My chest tightened. "Has he ever hurt you, Lucas?" He shook his head. "No. He says he doesn't hit kids. But he says mean things. That I'm stupid or too sensitive. That I need to be tougher." His little hand tightened around the crayon. "He tells Mom she's worthless without him. That no one else would want her." Each word was like a knife to my heart. I'd known something was wrong, but I'd never imagined it was this bad. "Your mom is one of the strongest, most amazing people I know," I told him. "And so are you. You were very brave today." "I was scared," he admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," I explained, gently tipping his chin up so his eyes met mine. "It means doing the right thing even when you're scared." Before he could respond, Amanda appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale, but there was a new steadiness to her that hadn't been there before. "Lucas, baby, come here," she said, opening her arms. He ran to her, and she enveloped him in a fierce hug, rocking slightly as she held him. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into his hair. "I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Mom," he said, patting her back like he was the parent. "Grandma says we're brave." Amanda looked over his head at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of shame, regret, and something else, resolve. "She's right," Amanda said. "And from now on, things are going to be different. I promise." Officer Ramirez approached, her expression compassionate but professional. "Mrs. Prescott, we've arranged for you and Lucas to stay at a safe house tonight. It's comfortable, secure, and they have counselors on staff." "Thank you," Amanda said, "but I think we'd like to stay with my mother, if that's okay." The officer nodded. "That's fine. We can arrange for an officer to drive past periodically tonight, just as a precaution. Mr. Prescott will be held at least until arraignment tomorrow morning." "What happens then?" I asked. "The judge will determine if he'll be released pending trial. Given the circumstances, we'll be requesting a restraining order." After Officer Ramirez left, the three of us stood in the kitchen, an awkward silence falling between us. There was so much to say, yet words seemed inadequate. "Can we go to Grandma's now?" Lucas asked, breaking the tension. "I'm really tired." Amanda smiled weakly. "Yes, sweetheart. Let's get some of your things first." We drove to their house, a beautiful Tudor-style home that had always seemed so perfect from the outside. Now, walking through the immaculate rooms, I saw it differently. The rigid organization, the lack of personal touches, the absence of Amanda's artwork that she'd once loved to create, it was less a home than a showcase of Richard's control. Amanda moved efficiently, packing clothes for herself and Lucas. In their bedroom, she paused before a framed wedding photo, staring at it with an unreadable expression. "I thought I was living a fairy tale," she said quietly. "The successful husband, the beautiful house, the perfect family. I didn't realize I was disappearing." "When did it start?" I asked gently. "Gradually. So gradually I barely noticed. First it was small suggestions. My clothes weren't professional enough, my friends weren't sophisticated enough. Then it was decisions about the house, our finances. Eventually, I was asking permission for everything." She turned to me, her eyes haunted. "When did I become so weak, Mom?" I crossed the room and took her hands in mine. "You are not weak, Amanda. You never have been. I let him isolate me. I let him turn me against you. You were manipulated by someone who knew exactly what he was doing," I said firmly. "But today, you chose to be brave. You chose to protect your son and yourself. That takes incredible strength." A tear slid down her cheek. "I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything." I pulled her into my arms, feeling her shoulders shake as she finally let herself cry, really cry, for perhaps the first time in years. "We're going to get through this," I promised her. "All of us, together." When we arrived at my house, Amanda's friends were waiting on the porch. Without a word, they surrounded her, enveloping her in a group hug that said everything words couldn't. Lucas watched, his small face solemn, until Sarah opened the circle. "Get in here, buddy," she said. "You're part of this family too." As we all filed into the house, this house that had felt so empty just days ago, I realized that while the road ahead would be difficult, we had already taken the hardest step. We had broken the silence. 6 months can change everything. The seasons turned from winter to spring, and with the blooming flowers came new beginnings for all of us. The first few weeks after that night were the hardest. Richard was released on bail but with a restraining order that prevented him from contacting Amanda or Lucas. He hired an expensive attorney and fought every step of the way: custody, division of assets, even the restraining order itself. Amanda struggled with guilt, shame, and fear. Some days, she could barely get out of bed. Other days, she'd clean my entire house, as if trying to regain control through order. Lucas had nightmares, waking up crying for his mom or screaming about his dad's anger. But we weren't alone. Amanda's friends formed a protective circle around us. Sarah helped Amanda find a therapist who specialized in domestic abuse. Jen, who worked at a law firm, connected her with a fierce divorce attorney who took on Richard's legal team without flinching. Beth's husband coached Lucas's baseball team, giving him a safe male figure to look up to. Day by day, week by week, we rebuilt our lives together. Amanda started painting again, something Richard had discouraged because it was messy and a waste of time. She converted my garage into a small studio, filling it with vibrant canvases that tracked her healing journey from dark, chaotic pieces to gradually lighter, more hopeful scenes. Lucas's nightmares decreased. His smile returned. He still had moments of anxiety, especially before court-mandated supervised visits with his father, but his therapist gave him tools to manage his emotions. He started telling jokes again, building elaborate Lego structures across my living room floor, being a child instead of a miniature adult responsible for protecting his mother. And me? I learned to balance supporting them without controlling them. I discovered that there's a special kind of joy in seeing your child find their strength, even if the path to that discovery is paved with pain. Today was moving day. After months of legal battles, the divorce was finalized last week. Richard had been ordered to pay substantial support and granted only supervised visitation with Lucas. Amanda had opted to sell the Tudor house, too many bad memories, and buy a modest 3-bedroom ranch just a few blocks from me. That's the last box, Sarah announced, setting a container labeled kitchen on the counter of Amanda's new home. The place was sunny and open, with walls Amanda had already painted in warm, inviting colors. I can't thank you all enough, Amanda said, looking around at the friends who had spent their Saturday helping her move. For everything. Group hug. Lucas declared, and everyone laughed as we gathered in the middle of the living room, arms around each other. After the others left, Amanda, Lucas and I ordered pizza and picnicked on the floor of the empty dining room, using boxes as our table. This is way better than Dad's fancy dinners, Lucas declared, cheese stretching from his slice to his mouth. We can eat with our hands. Amanda smiled, ruffling his hair. Yes, we make our own rules now, don't we? Within reason, I added with a wink at Lucas. As dusk fell, Lucas grew sleepy. Amanda tucked him into his new bed in a room painted blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, his choice, something Richard would never have allowed. She returned to the living room where I was assembling a bookshelf, her expression thoughtful. I keep waiting, she said, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside me. For what? To feel like I've failed. She traced a pattern on the carpet. Richard told me so many times that I couldn't survive without him. That I was nothing on my own. I set down my screwdriver. And what do you think now? A slow smile spread across her face. I think he was wrong about everything. About me, about Lucas, about what makes a family. I squeezed her hand. He was. I'm sorry I shut you out, Mom. I believed him when he said you were trying to control me, that you were jealous of our life. You have nothing to apologize for. Yes, I do, she insisted. I forgot who I was. I forgot who you were. The woman who raised me alone, who worked 2 jobs so I could take dance lessons, who never missed a single school event. My eyes filled with tears. I just wanted you to be happy. I know that now. She leaned her head on my shoulder. And I am happy. Not because everything is perfect, it's not. We still have a long road ahead. But because I'm free. Lucas is free. We get to decide who we are now. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the new house settling. You know, Amanda said finally, I've been thinking about that letter Lucas brought you that day. I still have it, I told her. In my bedside drawer. He saved us, Mom. My 8-year-old son was braver than I was. He gets that from you, I said. That courage was always there in you, even when you couldn't see it. Amanda stood and walked to a box labeled Special Things. She pulled out a frame and handed it to me. Inside was Lucas's drawing, the 4 figures holding hands, family forever, written across the top in his childish handwriting. But now, Richard's figure had been carefully removed, and in its place, Amanda had painted 2 new figures, Sarah and Jen. Lucas helped me fix it, she explained. He said it needed to show our real family. I traced my finger over the glass. It's perfect. That night, as I prepared to leave for my own home, Amanda stopped me at the door. Stay, she said. Just for tonight. We could have breakfast together in the morning. Start a new tradition. I smiled. I'd like that. Later, as I lay on the air mattress in what would become the guest room, I could hear Amanda and Lucas talking softly in his bedroom. Their voices drifted through the quiet house, gentle, loving, free from fear. I thought about the journey that had brought us here, from that devastating phone call 6 months ago to this moment of new beginnings. The letter that changed everything had been written by an 8-year-old boy who simply wanted his family to be whole. Not perfect, not pretending, just whole. And in a way I never expected, his wish had come true. Our family wasn't what any of us had imagined it would be. It was broken and rebuilt, expanded beyond blood to include friends who had become family. It was imperfect and sometimes messy, marked by both pain and healing. But it was real. And it was ours. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, Lucas's therapy appointment, Amanda's job interview, the ongoing navigation of their new normal. But we would face it together, holding hands just like in Lucas's drawing. Family forever, indeed.